Good morning, happy Saturday. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to sit outside today because until about even 5 minutes ago it was quite dark, but it has brightened up just enough for me to be able to sit outside. So let's make the most of it because it was raining yesterday. So, right, I'm going to read the verses for you today, and so should we crack on? It's Mark chapter 14. Verses 66 to 72. Now, we are getting now towards the end. We've started working our way up to the climax, all the exciting bits, I suppose we want to call them exciting, has started. Excuse me. Jesus was arrested earlier on in the evening, and he's been put on trial. He's at the high priest's house. And the disciples have all run away. And it says here about what happens to Peter. So Peter, meanwhile, was below in the courtyard. One of the high priest's servants' girls comes up and saw him warming himself. She looked closely at him and said, "You were with Jesus the Nazarene too, weren't you?" "I don't know what on earth you're talking about," replied Peter. He went outside to the forecourt and the cock crowed. The servant girl saw him and once more began to say to the bystanders, "This man is one of them." But Peter again denied it. A little while later, the bystanders said again to Peter, "You really are one of them, aren't you? You're a Galilean." At that he began to curse and swear, "I don't know this man you're talking about." And immediately the cock crowed for the second time. And Peter remembered the words that Jesus had said to him, "Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he burst into tears. Morning, Tanya. Nice to have you with us. So, literally, earlier on in the evening, Peter promised Jesus that he would never, ever leave him. Jesus said at the Last Supper, which was literally that evening, the evening before, so it hasn't been that long ago, Jesus says, "You will all leave me." And Peter says, no, everybody else might leave you, but I will not. I will not leave you. And Jesus says to him, "Before the cock crows tonight, you will deny me 3 times. And Peter kind of scoffs and goes, I don't think so. I don't think so. He was so certain. He had such faith in Jesus that there was no way that he was going to deny or run away from his friend, from the Messiah. Now, Peter believes that Jesus is the Messiah, is the Son of God. And there was no way that he was going to deny him or leave him in his time of need. And Jesus says, "Hang on a minute, because you are going to." And literally a couple of hours later, here is Peter, afraid for his life. I mean, do you remember what happened in the garden when all the soldiers turned up to arrest Jesus? It was frightening. Peter wasn't that old himself, and he would have been frightened for his life. And Jesus had been taken away. They had no idea what was happening to Jesus, which is probably a good thing because there wasn't nice things happening to Jesus at this point. And he was afraid for himself, which is a perfectly reasonable human reaction. Yeah, I would be the same. And I'm sure if you all think about it, you would be the same as well. You know, Jesus was supposed to be the Messiah, the Son of God. And yet he was. He'd been arrested by men and soldiers and had been taken away. And who knows what was going to happen to them. Surely, the Messiah would be able to fight them all off and come out triumphant. But we all know that's not what Jesus, that's not his plan. From reading, those of you who followed us from the beginning, you know that wasn't Jesus' plan. He didn't come as a big soldier, as a big white knight to fight and to kill all his oppressors. He came meekly, like this. And this is how he came. This was the plan. And Peter was like, no, when people said to him, "You were with Jesus," when he was like, no, don't know him. And 3 times he was asked, and 3 times he denied knowing Jesus. And when the cock crowed the second time, He remembered what Jesus had said to him, like earlier on in the evening, and he felt so ashamed because here he was doing what he said he wouldn't do. And I mean, I'm sure we've all had times where it's difficult for us to admit that we are Christians, that we believe in Jesus, that we go to church. You know, it can be difficult. I mean, you know, we do live in a country where it's okay to be a Christian. We're not persecuted for being Christians. We're not killed for being Christians. But still, there's still that peer pressure, the outside society pressure that people believe Christians should behave a certain way, should look a certain way, should be a certain way. And it's hard. It's hard to stay, you know, to live up to those standards. It is really hard. And sometimes we fail. And perhaps we're embarrassed by that, you know, and that's fine. That's a human thing, and it's okay to fail. None of us are perfect. We are all born into sin. The Bible tells us that it's easier for us to do wrong than to do good, to do right. But we have Jesus, and we can call out to Jesus and just apologize. Now, Peter here, he's denied Jesus 3 times, and he's really embarrassed. Now, later on, in the next chapter, no, I'm confused where we are. After the crucifixion and the resurrection, when Jesus comes back, he sees Peter, and he forgives Peter. Now, I know that's a bit of a spoiler for you, but I think it's integral to this story. You know, Peter is so ashamed by what he's done, but Jesus doesn't hold it against him. After everything Jesus goes through, he comes back and he forgives Peter for denying him 3 times. And he can do exactly the same for us. So if you've ever said that you are a Christian and perhaps you've fallen away, perhaps you've come away from Jesus from, you know, for any kind of reason, then that's okay. Don't be embarrassed. Just come back to Jesus and say, I'm sorry, let's try again. And Jesus will absolutely forgive you. And he wants you back, because Jesus wanted Peter back. He wanted Peter. He loved Peter. And he loves you too. That's a perfect place to end there. So, you know, just if you've ever done something that you're embarrassed by, or you've said something, you know, that you wish you'd never said, just tell Jesus. Jesus knows. And say sorry, and he will forgive you. He will forgive you because he loves you. Have a fantastic Saturday.